going to be a side tow. There's going to be about 12 soft lines attaching the vessels together, okay, from the larger bit.
Eric Hunter is explaining the process for removing a 100-foot steel barge from the Columbia River near the town of Rainier, Oregon. Eric works with a company called Diversified Marine Incorporated, or DMI. The company specializes in planning and executing these kinds of complex operations.
More than likely, with the weather that we're having nowadays due to climate change, is that it may not have made it through the winter in the position it was in. So we're out here on a freezing cold day in the rain, and we need to be in order to make sure it gets out of here before it becomes a problem.
The kinds of problems Eric is referring to include the barge breaking free of its mooring and blocking a navigation channel in the river. Or if it's left too long, it could sink and potentially leak all kinds of harmful chemicals into the water. The ship, known as the Herb Anderson, is a hulking green and orange metal vessel. It's rusted and worn from decades of neglect. In its heyday, it was used for dredging up and down this river and along the Oregon coast. It's also known as the Dredge Anderson.
One kind of cool thing about the Dredge Anderson actually was after the Mount St. Helens eruption, all of that debris and ash and everything came down the mountain and into the rivers, and the Dredge Anderson was involved in helping unclog the rivers and clean up all of that mess.
Dorothy Deal is a waterways stewardship project manager with the Oregon Department of State Lands.
So it has kind of a cool history, but unfortunately it's been here on the waterfront in Rainier for way too long, and time to move it up the river to Portland and get it safely dismantled. We'll do some environmental testing on it, find out what the hazards are, mitigate all of that, and should be wrapped up by the end of the year.
She explained that her agency tried to work with the owner of the Herb Anderson to find a solution. But when that didn't work, the state ended up seizing the vessel to dispose of it properly.
Ultimately, we have a responsibility to protect the resource of the waterway also, and so we couldn't wait anymore.
The crew from DMI uses tugboats and a working barge to push the derelict dredge upriver to Portland. The logistics of an operation like this involve a lot of plans and backup plans.
If there's an emergency, we will immediately go hard to starboard and we will beach the dredge until we can get other tugs to come and assist with the final push into Portland. So if there's a problem and it breaks loose, or if there's a problem and starts taking water, there's multiple levels of emergency planning that have been put in place, and contacts have already been pre-notified of just in case.
From the Gert Boyle studio, I'm Jen Chavez, and this is The Evergreen, a podcast from OPB about the place you call home. The dredge Herb Anderson is just one of the many inoperable boats sitting in rivers and coastal waterways. Whether it's a big barge or a little sailboat, getting it safely out of the water is just not as simple as towing away a broken down car. And that's why so many of these boats sit around for years or even decades before they can be removed. They're known as abandoned and derelict vessels, or ADVs.
Abandoned and derelict vessel is the official term.
Noah Thomas is a producer for OPB's Oregon Field Guide.
Not all of the boats are actually abandoned. Usually they are derelict in some way, shape, or form. That usually means they're either falling apart, they are decaying, or they are inoperable. They are deemed unseaworthy. And especially a boat that is falling apart, is decaying, is posing environmental hazards, or is at risk of sinking. These would all fall under the definition of abandoned and derelict boats.
Noah was curious about the complex problem of ADVs.
It's almost impossible to come up with a specific number because they're constantly moving. I've heard, dozens just in the lower Columbia and Willamette alone. And that's not counting the entire coast and all the other rivers in the state of Oregon. So you could say that there's probably like hundreds at any given time in the state of Oregon. I'd say that would be a fair estimate.
One of the biggest barriers to getting abandoned and derelict vessels out of the water is, of course, money. It can be really challenging to figure out how to pay for the removal operation, not to mention dealing with any environmental hazards that are discovered along the way. When it comes to big industrial vessels like the dredge Herb Anderson, the costs really add up.
This operation will cost just slightly a little bit north of $1 million when we're all done.
In theory, the owner of the vessel is responsible for that cost. In this case, the state legally seized the barge in order to remove it before things got worse, and they will try to recover the cost from the owner after the fact. But for now, the state is paying DMI to do the removal. So where does that money come from? Turns out it's kind of a hodgepodge of funding.
Basically, the Oregon legislature has pulled funds from a few different sources, ranging from very significant lawsuits to grant funds. And then the Marine Board sets aside $150,000 every 2 years for removals. So essentially, there are millions of dollars set aside specifically for removing abandoned and derelict vessels. So technically, it's not the taxpayers that are footing this bill. However, these are funds that otherwise would be going to other programs.
And not every removal costs $1 million. DMI also helps the state take care of smaller abandoned and derelict vessels.
And we have 8 or 9 smaller sailboats, 30-footers, 40-footers, that are currently at our facility that are going to be destroyed here in 3 weeks.
Removing a broken down sailboat is complex in a different way than removing a giant derelict barge. That's because these smaller boats are not always abandoned, and often people are living on board. Coming up after a break, we'll hear why boats can be a last resort for people facing homelessness. Thanks for listening to The Evergreen, our podcast from OPB about the place you call home. If you dig what you hear, subscribe to us on your favorite podcast app, and we'll brighten your Monday morning a little bit with something new and exciting to listen to each week. You can also follow OPB on Instagram @OPBphoto, or follow me directly @JenChavezOPB. That's Jen with 2 N's, and I'll keep you posted on everything Team Evergreen is up to. And remember, this episode about abandoned and derelict boats and all the great OPB reporting and storytelling you hear on this show is made possible by the support of many thousands of OPB members. You help keep us afloat. Support our journalism by becoming an OPB sustaining member today at opb.org/pod. And now, back to the water.
Hi, I'm Zora.
Zora Hess is paddling a green kayak down the Willamette River in Portland. Zora is a community organizer, and she regularly checks in on people living aboard boats anchored in the river, or liveaboards. She approaches a sailboat with a kayak and a canoe tied up alongside it. A little dog stands on the kayak, barking at her.
Oh, such a cutie. Come here.
Pete Sastilio climbs from the boat to the kayak and takes the little dog in his arms to calm her down.
You're so good. You're doing a good job. I will be here on Friday afternoon. I will bring some food.
Okay, if I'm not here,
I'm just going to drop it off here.
The boat Pete lives on looks like it's in pretty rough shape. He says he bought it at an auction for $110, and he's been living on it with his 2 dogs for about 6 months. Before that, he was living on another boat that got destroyed in a fire.
We're homeless, we're struggling.
He says he feels safer on a boat than he did living in a tent.
Are you fishing out here?
Yeah.
Are you eating the fish?
No,
Good for you.
I catch and release out here.
Zora briefly explains that this part of the Willamette is a Superfund site, meaning it's polluted, and the fish would not be safe for Pete or his dogs to eat.
And one more question. Do you have fire extinguishers?
No,
I will bring you some.
great, I appreciate that.
Yeah, I will bring you some.
All right, thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you so much, Peter.
God be safe.
Yep, we'll see you a little bit later.
It takes a lot of time, money, and effort to maintain a boat. So if someone has a boat that will cost them more to fix up than the boat is worth in resale value, they might sell it as is for very little money.
Buying a used boat is like buying anything else. You just go to an online marketplace like Facebook, Craigslist, and people are selling boats. And so a lot of boats aren't in very good condition. You know, for the average person, they don't want to have anything to do with a boat that's inoperable or in need of significant repairs. But for someone who's looking to use the boat as shelter, as a dwelling space, then that would be very attractive.
And it's attractive to someone experiencing homelessness because it offers more freedom than a tent or even an RV. Pete says there are just too many restrictions for people who are unsheltered.
And that's what the city's doing. They're pushing us off every corner in Portland. Can't step close to this, can't step close to that. They make so many rules that we can't set up no place, that there's no other place to set up but out here. So we find abandoned boats, and that's where we start living, you know?
Pete says he can't afford the legal registration on the new boat, and he's anchored in the river because he also can't pay the monthly fees marinas charge to use their docks. Those fees range from $200 to $500 per month. Living on a boat outside of a marina means Pete has less access to some services. Chris Vertopoulos is a fishing guide on the Willamette River, and he says he's seen an increase in abandoned and derelict vessels over the past few years.
My biggest problem with it is when you have people living in their boats on the water and not in moorages, is that there's a lot of waste and sewer and garbage and pollution that ends up in the river because these people, many of them don't have the means to get their holds in their boats taken care of and pumped out, that all that ends up in the river.
Zora Hess, the community organizer, sees things differently. She points out that industrial waste is probably the biggest source of pollution in the river. And she says people who live on or near the river are more responsible with their trash than people like Chris might think.
Most of them are collecting it and bringing it out or burying it because nobody wants to live in trash. A lot of the beaches and everything are cleaned every day here. Cathedral Park is every day cleaned by people who are unhoused. There's nobody knows that. They're always out here and cleaning and keeping everything ordered because it's their home. So people keep their homes clean.
Whatever you do with your trash, living on a boat outside a marina is kind of a legal gray area. There are some rules that govern how long boats can stay in one spot.
So you're legally allowed to moor or anchor a boat outside of a dock or marina for up to 30 days before having to move at least 5 miles in any direction. And then it kind of resets and you can stay in that spot for up to 30 days.
Pete says he has fewer interactions with law enforcement now than he did when he lived on land.
I know that, Multnomah River Patrol real well. They're good people, but they work with you, they really do.
The Multnomah County River Patrol are responsible for public safety on several public waterways, including the Columbia, Willamette, and Sandy rivers, as well as the Multnomah Channel.
They're not looking to seize anyone's boat. They don't want to remove shelter from someone who is living on their boat and they have no other options. But at the same time, they have to try to manage it.
Noah rode along with some deputies one day as they were patrolling the channel.
Hello! Sheriff's Office!
Deputy Ryan Barrett leans over the side of the patrol boat to see if anyone is aboard an apparently abandoned sailboat.
No movement or sounds or anything.
When no one answers, Phil Hudspeth attaches a large orange sticker to the back of the boat. Phil is a boating policy and environmental coordinator for the Oregon State Marine Board. That basically means he tracks abandoned and derelict boats. He explained that the sticker is what's called a pre-seizure notice, but that doesn't mean the boat will necessarily be seized by the state.
We're not going to be looking to seize a boat that somebody's living on. The sheriff's office will talk to them, offer them some options there, and see if they can help them with that. But we wouldn't be looking at seizing a boat that somebody's actively living on at this time.
Of course, the sheriff's deputies would love for everyone to follow the rules and make sure their boat registration is up to date. But that's not really why they patrol the water. Deputy Chad Diekman explains that he's on the lookout for broken down boats that might not be able to survive a heavy rain.
If I believe a boat is going to sink, my goal is generally to try to prevent that boat from sinking. Because our costs for cleaning that boat up after it sinks exponentially go up.
And of course, a boat that's on the verge of sinking is dangerous for anyone using that boat as a place to live. Pete Sastilio says a friend of his had a boat that sank in a winter storm.
It gets scary out here in the wintertime. Summertime, it's a blast, but that wind gets going about 30 miles an hour and you're like holding your breath.
Pete says one way to help people like him would be to make marinas more accessible to low-income people. That way, they'd have a safer place to dock their boats and access resources to maintain them. If you don't work or live near the water, you may not even notice the boats like Pete's sitting in the water. Like broken down RVs or tents on the side of the road, they are a symptom of more systemic problems, namely economic instability and a lack of affordable housing options.
If someone buys a boat, it's because they have a dream. It's because they want to recreate on the boat. They want to travel. They're using it as part of a business venture. And for whatever reason, something goes wrong, and now they're left with this boat, this piece of property.
And those big societal problems are not problems that can be easily solved. But people like Zora Hess are doing what they can to help.
It's our community. These are my neighbors, and we should see everybody as neighbors and as community members. And I would like to hear the stories people telling.
The complicated problem of abandoned and derelict boats is not isolated to Oregon. In fact, the video that Noah Thomas created for Oregon Field Guide on this topic has been one of the most popular on OPB's YouTube channel.
This is an international issue. People are dealing with this all over the world. And so I think if you're looking to purchase a boat or a vessel, then just be mindful of all the work that's going to need to go into it, and educate yourself on how to properly maintain that vessel. Contact the Marine Board, contact the Department of State Lands. They have a lot of resources on this particular topic.
You can read Noah Thomas's story and see the video he made about abandoned and derelict vessels at opb.org. Thank you for listening to The Evergreen, a podcast from OPB. Julie Sabatier produced this episode, and our technical director is Stephen Cray. I engineered this episode. Stephen Cray mixed, mastered, and scored the episode. The OPB podcast team also includes Mia Estrada and Sage Van Wing. Noah Thomas, Cameron Nielsen, Jeff Kastner, and Robert Sams did the interviews you heard. The music in this episode is from Audio Network. And if you have a question for us, please reach out. Just send us an email at theevergreen@opb.org. I'm Jen Chavez. Catch you later.